Good Monday afternoon to you. It's 4 o'clock time for Sports4CLE. Hope you had a great weekend. Thanks for joining us. Former NFL wide receiver Shannon Sharpe, Chad Ochocinco with their thoughts on the competition between the two rookie quarterbacks for the Browns, Shedeur Sanders and Dillon Gabriel.
There are conspiracy theories circling that Cleveland trying to force the early picks. Yeah, they're going to do everything they possibly can because they don't want to look bad, Ocho.
Right.
If I draft Dillon Gabriel higher than I drafted Shedeur, and Shedeur outplays him, boy, that make me look bad. If he gets in there, I signed Kenny Pickett as a free agent. If he gets in there and he outperforms Kenny Pickett, that makes me look bad.
Right.
So I'm going to give these guys every opportunity to succeed because I don't want y'all to make me look bad. Because you can say, oh, yeah, we didn't have this grade on him. Don't matter the grade. Because at the end of the day, you got to play. You can give that guy A+, or B, whatever the case may be. But when we get in there, something got to give.
If Shedeur Sanders outperforms him, you look like a genius because you took him in the 5th round and nobody else drafted him. Everything is perception, and everything is perception relative to somebody's reality. Former NFL front office type Louis Riddick was asked the odds that Shedeur Sanders can be the Browns' starting quarterback.
I believe if he is given enough reps, earns enough reps, and then is given enough reps in meaningful situations, he can throw the ball just as good as Joe, if not better, just as good as Kenny, if not better, just as good as Dillon Gabriel, if not better. And that if it's truly what we all like to say the NFL is, which is a meritocracy, which in theory it is, in actuality, there isn't enough time for it to be a true meritocracy, especially when you're talking about trying to get 4 quarterbacks ready or give 4 quarterbacks enough reps to figure out who the best one is. We know that it isn't always that way. And a lot of times it's just simply because there's just not enough opportunities. So can Kevin figure that out? Can he figure out how to get the information, to get enough reps, to get enough of him on tape to where he could really say, damn, man, maybe by, I don't know, week 4, 5, 7, I think 7's kind of like the sweet spot in the season, week 7. Should we be considering putting him in there?
Well, it's up to the quarterbacks that are involved in the competition to earn the reps, and the players are going to know. The players are going to know which of these guys is the best quarterback, and you have to play that guy. Because last year you didn't when you were playing Deshaun Watson and saying he gave you the best chance to win. Players knew that wasn't true. Former NFL offensive lineman Damian Woody with his thoughts on Shedeur Sanders and the Browns quarterback competition.
Forget all the OTA stuff. You don't win a job in OTA. The real action starts in training camp. And just like Shedeur said, during the minicamp, when it's time to take your reps, you got to make the most of it. Because I think early on, there's going to be a lot. Remember, Joe Flacco didn't hardly practice in OTAs and minicamps because they were giving the young guys.
Right.
So when he gets his opportunity, he's going to have to make the most of it.
And if he makes the most of it, he'll get more opportunities. And if he gets more opportunities, eventually he may end up being the starting quarterback. But again, got to earn it. Longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi, what he's watching relative to Shedeur Sanders.
Tony, there is this feeling from some people that he has blown everybody out of the water. But are you resisting that? Or are you acknowledging
he's getting better every day? He's very coachable, very likable.
He doesn't look like a 5th-round pick out there. Is that fair?
Can we wait till the pass rush and shoulder pads get on? I mean, it is touch football, Aaron. I mean, right now. And what's the one negative about Shedeur was what? Drifting into sacks, not being able to get away without the physical, the running ability to get,
At what point are you going to start to give him more credit? Preseason
I'm giving him
games
credit.
is what
He's doing better, but I think this is overhyping again.
And again, when you're in shorts and there aren't pads and there's not a rush that's trying to take your head off, it's not true NFL football, so we'll see. You'll see all that come training camp. Let's move on to the Guardians. Trying to avoid a sweep at the hands of the Seattle Mariners in Seattle yesterday afternoon. Luis Ortiz on the mound against Emerson Hancock for the Mariners. Gets the strikeout of Jose Ramirez, failed to reach base, snapping a 39-game on-base streak. Second inning, bases loaded. Miles Mastrobuoni, a little bloop out into right field, made it 1-0. Bases still loaded in that second inning for the Mariners. And J.P. Crawford continues to kill the Guardians. Golfs one out into right, and that one's big trouble. Grand Slam makes it 5-0. The Guardians' offense never really threatened. They managed just 4 hits, and they get shut out 6-0 by the Mariners. The Mariners get the sweep. Guardians have struggled mightily on offense. Stephen Vogt on the loss.
I thought, Luis really struggled with his command. We saw it for some innings. It was sharp right there. But the free bases got to him. I mean, 6 runs on 5 hits. And, when you give a team like that free base runners, there's not a whole lot of room for error. So, obviously, not his best performance. But, the big blow really, really got us.
What did Hancock do so well today?
I thought his sinker was running a lot. It was moving a lot. He was living on the edges and mixed in enough changeups and occasional slider to get us off of it. But that sinker had a ton of movement today. We just weren't able to get anything going offensively.
So the Guardians get swept in their first game on that West Coast trip. Now 9.5 behind the Tigers in the AL Central. Also a game behind a couple of teams for that last wild card spot. Night off today, they'll play the Giants. They start a 3-game series in San Francisco against the Giants tomorrow night. Time for us to take a quick time out. Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter from Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, is up first. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
Browns are up first on Sports4CLE. Let's head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
It's time to get rid of Andrew Berry. He's made some of the dumbest moves. It doesn't make no sense. You let Nick Chubb go, but you re-signed Jerome Ford, even though you gave him a lesser deal. I think Pierre Strong's better than Jerome Ford. And then you guys want to say, oh, well, his age. Well, look at Saquon. They came out the same year. And if I remember, Saquon's already had a terrible knee injury, and he had a bounce-back year. So don't blame it on the age or injury. I blame it on Andrew Berry trying to make a power move for what? We're going to go 4-13 if we're lucky. So I guess it's a hard day to be a Browns fan when you see Nick Chubb out there looking like Nick Chubb. I think he was healed from his knee injury last year. The offensive line was crap, hence is why they fired the offensive line coach. But you don't give him a chance. Man, Jerome Ford is a bust, and I don't understand what people see in him. I think Andrew Berry's eye for talent is horrible. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. Mary Kay, if you can't compare the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, Browns, Nick Chubb, they're in 2 very different places right now as they approach this season.
Yeah, and I think I understand that it's very, very difficult for Browns fans to accept the departure of Nick Chubb. I do understand that that's really a tough thing for everyone. But the Browns wanted to overhaul their running game with Quinshawn and Dillon, and that's what they've done. And again, I hope that Nick Chubb goes on to have a really, really nice season with the Texans. But what the Browns didn't want to happen here was for him to be the 4th string quarterback. They did not want him in that type of situation. They respect him too much for him to have that role. And he didn't have like a niche, a 3rd down role or something that he could play here. So this is the way that it turned out. I hope that he comes back and retires as a Cleveland Brown when the time comes. But right now, the Browns were just ready to move on.
And they have those 2 rookie running backs that they took high in the draft. You've had a chance to see the rookies, and I know we're not in training camp. Just some overall impressions of the draft class, the rookies that have been brought in.
Well, those running backs look really good. They really do. You can tell that Quinshon Judkins has plenty of explosiveness and plenty of power. You're going to see some Nick Chubb-like tendencies out of Quinshon Judkins for sure. And then Dylan Sampson, what strikes me at first is just kind of how diminutive he is. He's not a big guy by any stretch of the imagination. He's much more of a smaller back, but he's shifty, he's agile, he catches the ball really well out of the backfield. I think they make a nice change up, a good 1-2 punch. And then the emailer referred to Jerome Ford as a bust. I don't think Jerome Ford is a bust. I think that Jerome Ford is actually going to have a nice season, and I think that this competition is going to bring out the best in him, and he's going to want to say, hey, don't forget about me. And he's just someone that you can play on third down. You can have him catching the ball out of the backfield a lot, and I think the Browns like that versatility.
We've heard that you can't read too much into what's going on in June, the offseason program. But what do you think we learned about the Browns through the mini camps?
Well, I think one of the things that we found is that all 4 quarterbacks are still in this race. None of them have eliminated themselves. I think for a period of time there, it almost seemed like maybe Shedeur in the early going wasn't going to necessarily be a bona fide contender. But now, over the past 2 weeks, he's really come on strong. So I think that you're going to see him really in the thick of this race for quite a bit of time into training camp. And I think that'll be good for everyone. And then again, all the rookies look good. Harold Fannin, he caught everything that came his way. The 2 young defenders, Mason Graham and Carson Schlesinger, those guys are going to start right away as well. So I think you're going to see a lot of impact from this rookie class this season alone. Those guys will probably bring the biggest differences on this roster, as opposed to maybe some of the free agent pickups and whatnot. So these guys are ready to roll. And once again, it's a much tougher camp that we're seeing, a much more higher intensity, faster paced camp. And these guys are going to be ready to go.
So the other thing is Deontay Johnson was there for mandatory mini camp. He spoke with the media. I know you wrote an article about him. How important is this year to him? And what sense did you get in listening to Deontay Johnson talk?
Well, I've said this before. I really wish he would have shown up for organized team activities. I think that really would have, instead of telling you what he's going to do, I think it would have shown the Browns how committed he is. But he worked out on his own, and he came in good shape. He's ready to go. He feels like he knows what his process is for the offseason. And so he did what he felt he needed to do there. But he was doing some catching up. And, I saw there were times when Kenny Pickett was helping him out a little bit with certain things that he had to do. So let's see how it goes. He needs to have a really, really good camp. And most of all, he needs to put his head down and go to work and be a good teammate and be very coachable and all those things. If he can do that, he certainly has the talent to help this football team.
And you mentioned Kenny Pickett, hit his teammate in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, so that's why he was kind of helping him out. What are your takeaways about the wide receiving core?
Well, I'll tell you what, we did not see a whole bunch of some of the guys. Cedric Tillman and Mike Woods, too. Those guys sat out the first couple of days of this very important minicamp with injuries. They worked themselves back into it on the 3rd day. But by then, a lot of the install and a lot of the really tough work was done. So we didn't get to see as many of those guys, but it gave some of the younger guys like Jamari Thrash a chance to get way more reps. And Jamari is really, really having a nice spring. He's having a very, very nice spring. And I think he's going to make his move this year and try to get on that football field. It's not going to be easy because they're not playing a lot of 3 wides this year. I don't know if they'll play many at all. And so it's going to be 2 and sometimes 1. And you're going to really have to be on point. But Jamari does some really nice things. And he is definitely in contention to get some reps.
So, the defensive line, I'm really intrigued by that. They've added some pieces, some young pieces, some quicker pieces. How good do you think the defensive line can be, and the defense in general?
Well, there are some guys that are coming back from injuries, like Alex Wright. I think that's going to really, really help them this year because you need somebody else who can get some sacks besides Myles Garrett. So they're going to need to get that pressure. no matter where it comes from. It can come from the inside. It can come from the outside. So I'm very interested to see what Alex Wright is going to be able to do. And then Isaiah McGuire, I think he'll take another step up. It's probably going to be sacks by committee other than Miles. And of course, you expect to get some really good pressure from the interior, from Mason Graham and from Mike Hall. Now, we haven't seen Mike Hall yet. He's recovering from a knee surgery, but he will be back sometime in training camp, I'm guessing.
When you look at the defense, what do you think some of the keys for them to be as good as Jim Schwartz and Kevin Stefanski expect them to be this year?
Well, one of the things that they have to do, and these guys are talking about it, Denzel's talking about it, they have to get some takeaways. These guys have to play more aggressive ball. They've got to punch it out. They've got to pick it off. They've got to return some for touchdowns. And they just have to make those big impact plays behind the line of scrimmage, batting down balls. They just need to be all over the place. They need to play over their heads that way. And if they can do those kinds of things, then they will get back to being one of the better defenses in the league. But they've really got to show up this year that way.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com, and I'm going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, talk a little bit more about that quarterback competition. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
At the Ohio Lottery, we make Keno fun your way. So go on, pick your wager. Will it be $1, $2, $10, or more? Your call. Then it's as easy as picking up to 10 numbers. Use any inspiration you like. You can even tag on the booster for a chance to boost your winnings up to 10 times. Every few minutes across Ohio, 20 out of 80 possible numbers are drawn. And if enough of yours match, you win. Keno is always fun your way.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Chad Ochocinco, Shannon Sharp, two former NFL receivers. Talked about Shedeur Sanders getting limited reps with the quote-unquote ones or starters.
But it's somebody that was a seventh-round draft pick, and that was with the third, fourth, fifth team, the last guy to get a rep. Some days, Ocho, I get one rep.
What?
I get one rep. That's all I got.
Serious?
That's it.
Oh, boy, I would have cut up. Boy, you got me, man, shit.
I just remember having a conversation with my brother. My brother would tell me, say, man, how it's going? I said, Spank, man, I got like one rep. I got like 2 reps. I ain't even get in today.
Damn.
He said, don't worry about that. He said, one day John Elway gonna call on you.
Yes, sir.
Just make sure when he call on you, you answer.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure you're where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there. That's all he told me. He didn't say, man, they messing over you. He never said hey, you know what you can do. Now, you're going to get your opportunity. It's going to come.
Yeah.
And when it comes, slowly but surely, I was with the 3s. Mm-hmm. Slowly but surely, I was with the 2s.
Come on now.
Hey, now all of a sudden, hey, Sharp, get in there. I'm in the slot, but I'm running with the 1s. Oh, okay.
Mary Kay, I know you've written a lot about the quarterback competition. What are your thoughts, just that mindset from somebody who's kind of lived starting at the bottom of the depth chart?
I really like that advice. That was really cool to hear that, because that is so true. And that's what these guys have got to do. You've got to take whatever opportunity that you get, and you have to make the most of it. And that's really what Shedeur has done. Shedeur got off to, as I mentioned earlier, a little bit of a slow start. And I'm not entirely certain that the Browns thought that he was going to be able to come up the learning curve as quickly as he would have needed to stay relevant in this quarterback competition heading into camp. But he's done just that. And I think that's the important thing here. He's taken every single rep that he had, and he's made the most of it. He completed tons of passes. He threw a lot of touchdown passes. He did a really, really nice job. The lights came on a little bit more every single day, and now he will be rewarded for it in training camp.
So you've seen a noticeable progression from the first OTA to the last rookie minicamp or mandatory minicamp?
Yeah, even from rookie minicamp to the end of mandatory minicamp, you've seen the progression, and you've also seen them giving him some 11-on-11s. And what we didn't see yet, at least not when we were out there, was an opportunity to work with the ones, to work against the ones, to work against Myles Garrett a little bit, to throw the ball to Jerry Jeudy from Shedeur. But he will get those chances in training camp. There's going to be enough to go around. They're going to have, of course, a lot more practices, fewer restrictions. You can be out there a little bit more. And then, of course, there will be the joint practices and the games. And I think those two rookies are going to get plenty of playing time in the games because you want to take it easy on Joe Flacco, of course, for obvious reasons. And then also those guys just need those reps.
All right, so Myles Garrett was asked what he has seen from Shedeur Sanders from his time with him in the offseason program.
I think everyone was surprised to see him go to the 5th round, but you know, he's come to camp and OTAs with a great attitude. You know, he's a hardworking guy. He has a good head on his shoulders, and you know, he's always positive, always optimistic, always keeps a smile on his face, and you know, you like going to work with people who have that kind of attitude.
So, Mary Kay, you were out at all the media availability with the mandatory minicamp when the veterans were there. What have you noticed about the way the veterans respond to Shedeur Sanders in particular?
Oh, I think it's great. And the thing that I noticed about Shedeur Sanders, starting all the way back to when I started observing him at the Super Bowl on Radio Row, and then on the red carpet at NFL Honors, and at the various places that I saw him, Combine, you know, you name it. I went to his Colorado showcase, and I saw great interactions with his teammates, with his coaches, with fans. He does have a great attitude. He's very upbeat. He's very positive. He's very forthcoming. He's great at the microphone. He does a really, really nice job, like I said before, with the reps that are given to him. And he's fun to be around. He's got a really, really dynamic and charismatic personality. So I think the vets are really enjoying him a lot. And I wrote a whole story about the kind of cute and funny rapport between Shedeur and I call him Papa Joe Flacco. Those guys have kind of got a little bit of a funny thing going on with Shedeur trying to teach him to dance or get him to dance, and you know, just some of the funny things that those guys have done together. So I think the vets really like him, and it's going well so far.
Yeah, he comes off as incredibly likable. I mean, you hear him, and I can't. Again, you heard all the national narrative about he was turning. I can't believe some of the stuff you heard leading up to the draft.
Right. No, you know, we heard that he was brash and arrogant and all those kinds of things. And I haven't found him to be that way. Maybe in certain settings he is that way. A lot of guys, you know, will be that way on the football field, but then not necessarily in the locker room or in an interview session. So I don't find him to be what we heard him to be. That doesn't mean that some of those meetings didn't go the way some of those teams wished they would have gone. You know, some of those private meetings that they had with him, you know, we heard certain things. I don't know what's true and what's not, but the important thing is the Browns didn't feel that way about him. They didn't feel that he was brash and arrogant. They almost felt that he was humble in some ways. And Shedeur really liked the Browns throughout this process and stayed in contact with the Browns throughout the pre-draft process. So they knew that he was ready to come in here and put his heart and soul into this.
So I know you wrote an article relative to the Browns potentially keeping all 4 of the quarterbacks that are in this, or at least all 4 of them making the roster. Take us through that article and just your thoughts on it.
Right. Well, I just posted that column today, and I do believe that that there is a very, very good chance that they will keep all 4 quarterbacks, and not just 2 days after the 53-man roster cut down. I think this is something where they are prepared to keep 4 quarterbacks well into the season, maybe all the way up to the trade deadline, and then beyond, depending on where things stand and how guys are doing and what kind of an offer that they may receive. Now, having said that, I really don't think that they're going to trade either one of those rookie quarterbacks at any point. I think that they see enough in those 2 guys that they want to keep them and develop them. If they do trade someone at any point, it's probably going to be someone like a Joe Flacco at the trade deadline or before the trade deadline, if someone makes them an offer that they can't refuse. So I think that's kind of where things stand right now.
So Kevin Stefanski made it pretty clear throughout OTAs and minicamp not to pay any attention to the reps relative to the quarterbacks, who's with the ones, who's getting this, who's getting that. In 5 weeks, when they come back, 5-6 weeks of training camp, is that the time to pay it? When do you start paying attention to the order and who's getting reps with ones and those kind of things?
Well, I think you're going to start paying attention to it right away, even though they will tell us not to. I think when they come back for training camp, I think it's going to be significant who is getting, some of those first team reps and who's getting those 11 on 11s and things like that. But the time that I think we really need to be focused in and honed in on this is when they are practicing against the Philadelphia Eagles in mid-August before that August 16th preseason game. That's when I really think that, that we're going to have an order of operations that will start to make some sense. And you'll see it's time to start getting ready for the season, either right around then or right after.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer. Cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll look ahead a little bit to training camp. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter from the Plain Dealer and cleveland.com. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
Hey guys, Dan in Maryland here. Based on just who's still out there, I think it'd be a good idea for the team to try and bring back our old friend Shedeur Johnson. I know he didn't do much with Jacksonville the past couple of years, but he was productive for us in 2020 and 2021, and the kind of offense we want to get back to running. He should come at a veteran league minimum. He's a quality special teams player, and I think overall he'd be the kind of good veteran insurance policy that our running back room could use in case one of the rookies aren't quite ready or there's some injury or anything else, or if we just need an extra guy to carry the ball, because, again, we're trying to get to probably 500-plus carries this year. That, and also if it turns out we don't need him, he can be cut and won't cost us anything. So, anyhow, keep up the good work. Go Browns.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Mary Kay, I think they really I think they view Dylan Sampson as kind of 1A and Jerome Ford as 1B. I think there aren't enough carries to go around right now with the three guys they have in the running back room.
No, there really aren't. And Pierre Strong is still here too. So I think the thing to remember is that's why Nick Chubb isn't back here right now, because they didn't have enough carries to go around. And the last thing anybody would want is for Nick Chubb to be inactive on game days. Would fans be happy about that? No. I mean, Nick needs to be out there playing. He needs to be enjoying his career. He needs to be proving everybody wrong. So I'm glad that he has an opportunity to do that, because that wasn't going to be happening for him here. So I don't see a Shedeur Johnson coming back right now. I think more so than anything, if they have an injury in camp, then they'll go out and they'll look for an extra back.
So we've heard a lot of, we've now heard Jack Conklin, we've heard Joel Bitonio talk extensively about how excited they are about this style of offense going back to Kevin Stefanski's running game and the new offensive line coach, Mike Bloomgren. How strange is that? I mean, the offensive line, you don't often hear them get excited about things, but they seem to be excited about what's going on relative to the run game and the line.
Well, they love to run block, and so they're going to be doing that. They're going to be going back to the old school sort of Bill Callahan way of doing things, the zone blocking schemes that they excelled at here, and plenty more of the run, which they didn't have enough of it last year at all. So they're looking forward to it. I'm sure they're excited about these two backs, and yeah, so it's really a return to possessing the football, and that's going to help the defense. It's going to help whichever quarterback. And so this is an offensive lineman's dream, and I think those guys are going to be rejuvenated.
So we've also heard comments about kind of the intensity and the pace of the mini camps. Do you expect training camp to be different than it's been the last couple of years under Kevin Stefanski and this staff?
Yes, I do. I really do. The thing that I'm very curious about is, will they give as many veteran days off? Will they try to maybe focus a little bit more again on some of the younger guys? But whoever's out there, they're going to be operating at a faster clip, at more intensity. There's going to be very little downtime. They're going to be running from drill to drill. They're going to be physically and mentally ready to play some tough football games. So that is the mantra for this season. I still think that you're going to see the Myles Garretts and the Joel Batonios to a certain extent rest to a degree in training camp and maybe not get a ton of reps in those preseason games. But this is definitely not a cushy camp.
Do you think it's a factor of the last couple of years, there have been a little bit of a slow start and then there have been some injuries? Is that kind of, hey, maybe if we go a little bit harder in training camp, we can pull back on those kind of things?
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole new philosophy in this regard. They completely overhauled their health and performance staff. So they're just looking at everything through new eyes now. And maybe the analytics are different. I'm sure there's still a lot of analytics involved, but somehow they're going to do it with an eye towards just getting tougher. And even in terms of there's a new nutritionist, and so they're probably making sure from a health standpoint that they're going to be really healthy that way, and just every possible thing that they can do to be stronger, faster, bigger, tougher. That's what they're doing.
So relative to the quarterback play, what are you going to be paying attention to early in training camp, and what are some signs that it will tell you, hey, it's going this way or it's going that way?
Well, one of the biggest things I will be looking at is heading into this whole thing, heading into this season, I think they really believed that Kenny Pickett could come in here and seize the moment and perhaps start for them, and that maybe they had caught lightning in a bottle and found their version of a Sam Darnold or someone like that. But Kenny's got to really, really go out there and knock their socks off if he's going to beat out Joe Flacco. Joe has a head start in this competition. He knows this offense. He knows this scheme. The veterans want him to play. The fans want him to play. I'm sure there's some coaches that would like him to start. So that's what Kenny's going to have to do. He's going to have to come in here and show the reasons why he's the better choice than Joe Flacco. And I think right now, ultimately, it's going to come down to those two guys for the start on opening day, unless one of those rookies just comes in here and exceeds all expectations, because you do still have a steep learning curve as a rookie. There's a lot that you have to learn. And if you can learn that from the sidelines for a little bit, you'll probably be ahead of the game.
So how important is it for them to kind of identify who their starting quarterback is, and ideally, when throughout the preseason do they do that?
Well, I really do think that sort of the flashpoint are those joint practices in Philadelphia before the August 16th game. So August 13th, August 14th, and again, those are in Philadelphia. They'll be closed to fans except for I think they allow their corporate fans to be there, so it's not like Browns fans can make their way up to Philadelphia and be there for these practices. But I think those two practices are going to be very vitally important in terms of the quarterback competition and what's going on there. So if we see Joe Flacco running with the first team offense consistently in those practices, then I think that's going to be a little bit of a tip-off, unless it doesn't go well. If he's throwing a lot of interceptions, then I think that could change the game. But if he's out there running with the ones, I think that's going to be very telling. And then I don't expect those guys to play in the game, Kenny or Joe, because they haven't in the past when the Browns have faced the Philadelphia Eagles in these joint practices. So I think it's really going to come down to pivotal days on August 13th and 14th.
So how do you, isn't it kind of important for just the way they call the plays, the way you get in and out of a huddle, those kind of things you want your starting unit to kind of get used to the guy that's going to be the quarterback, correct?
Right, and those are the things that are often a little bit more difficult for a rookie to master in his first season. I know it's one thing that Shedeur's really, really working hard on is some of those pre-snap protocols and processes. So, Joe has that down here more so than anybody. So as long as he can stay interception free or really cut down on those interceptions, then I do think he's going to be hard to beat. I think he's very much in the mix to start on opening day. And Kenny, he is too. He's still very, very, very much in the mix for starting on opening day. But Kenny has a little bit of a steeper learning curve just in terms of making sure he knows the terminology and making sure that he knows just pocket awareness and pocket presence and playing under center and all the things that go along with this offense.
Other than the quarterback, what else has you intrigued, and what are you paying attention to early in camp?
Well, I am ready to turn my attention to the defense. I really want to see what's going to be going on that defensive line and on that defensive front, and how these guys are just being aggressive and opportunistic. I want to see something from these defensive backs. I want to see Denzel Ward getting his hands on passes in practice, because if you do it in practice, then you're going to do it in games. And it's the same thing with some of the safeties and the other guys. They brought in 2 veteran safeties in Jenkins and Casey, and I think those guys have a chance to maybe get their hands on some footballs as well. So I would like to see some of that. And then from that defensive line, again, I want to see more. Bat down those passes and get that pressure. You're not going to be able to sack in training camp, but show that you're getting that pressure and really becoming a dominant defense.
Do they have the ability to be as good, maybe even better than they were a couple of years ago?
If they get the takeaways, yes. And that's the thing that they have to do now. That's what they have to add into their repertoire, are the takeaways. If you're going to be winning the turnover battle on a weekly basis, you're going to be winning a lot of football games. And that's the way to get this thing turned around.
Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer, cleveland.com. As always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Mary Kay.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Mary Kay Cabot, make sure you check her out. Best Browns coverage you can find for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick timeout. We continue talking Browns. Jeff Lloyd straight ahead. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program is dedicated to recognizing exceptional students, teachers, and schools throughout Ohio. Scan the QR code on screen to nominate students and teachers as Academic All-Stars and Teachers of the Month. They must be currently enrolled or teach in grades K through 12. Is your K through 12 school developing students' literacy skills to achieve success in reading? If so, you can nominate your school for the School of the Year. Students can win $100, teachers can win $500, and schools can win $2,500. Scan the QR code, fill out the forms, and nominate deserving students, teachers, and schools today. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program takes pride in honoring exceptional students, teachers, and schools across Ohio. Submit your nomination today. It's fun, fast, and free. We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason.
How you doing? This is Dennis from Cleveland. And I just want to comment on the not bringing Nick Chubb back, who's on his way to a Hall of Fame career before the injury. And what I don't understand was they knew that it takes at least 2 years to come back from these injuries. And I think it's disrespectful to the fans who are the ones who really pay the players and not the owner by buying tickets in Browns gear. We all love Nick and wanting him back, and they knew this. And it proves that they don't care about the fans.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Jeff Lloyd, host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Jeff, I know fans are upset about Nick Chubb. There's 2 things that come to mind. Our favorite player for the longest time was Phil Dawson, a kicker. Not many fan bases can say that. He was the bright spot. But relative to Chubb, I think what it tells you is they don't want to say they're rebuilding, but they want to get younger. It's not really about this year with Nick Chubb. It's about what you have moving forward. So, I get it, but I certainly understand why Andrew Berry and the Browns took 2 really – those are probably 2 of the top 4 or 5 running backs in the draft, and they got them in one draft.
It was always going to be a difficult situation with Nick Chubb. Now here, obviously an analytic-based – this is the way they do things. It's based on analytics. So the fact that Nick Chubb even got a contract extension from this front office shows you how they felt about Nick, and knew that Nick was more than just a top performing player. He was also a big part of the culture of the team. He was obviously well entrenched within the city, all of those things. But the fact of the matter is Nick Chubb has played, I believe it's 10 out of 35 games within the last 2 seasons. So as much as everybody reveres Nick Chubb and thinks about him, as far as Nick Chubb performing for this team over the last 2 seasons, it's been minimal. And the little bit we saw in 2024 certainly was not a version of Nick Chubb that any of us were familiar with. The Browns were in a tough spot. Do you continue the relationship with Nick Chubb? Have Jerome Ford here as well, maybe add one back, but that would have maybe gotten you through the 2025 season. You still would have had to redo the entire room in the 2026 season, as Jerome Ford would have been a free agent. This is the last year of his rookie contract. This was a great running back class in the 2025 NFL draft. Unlike one we've seen probably 4 years to come, and you have no idea what next year's class will bring. The Browns felt the best opportunity to improve that room for today and for the future was through the 2025 NFL draft. They went ahead and did it. And look, none of us know what Nick Chubb is going to do here. The Browns, if anybody, would maybe have the best way to give an educated guess as to what Nick Chubb could give in the 2025 season. And the dance went on, and it just never got any further other than just actual conversations about a contract. So we don't know what he's going to do in Houston. He's there with a team that has a very well entrenched and successful running back last year in Joe Mixon, who is a good runner and very, very good within the receiving game. So it's probably a good spot for Nick to go at this point in his career. The Browns made a difficult decision, and the decision wasn't based on aggravating the fan base. The decision was based on strengthening a room for today and for the future. And with Quinshon Judkins and Dylan Sampson, it appears they did just that.
So the other thing that we heard from Deuce Staley when he talked to the media end of last week, they've been working Dylan Sampson in the slot with wide receiver coach Chad O'Shea kind of taking the lead. You have Sampson, who they're doing that in the slot. You have Fannin, a bigger body tight end. Does that make you feel any better about what is, I think we both agree, it's kind of a thin wide receiving core?
The wide receiver room is definitely still a work in progress. But you look at, what's going to be your key talent. Who are the guys that are going to play in the most meaningful situations? We know Jerry Jeudy will be on the field. We know David Njoku will be on the field. Most likely Quinshon Judkins will be on the field. There's 3 guys there. This team always enjoyed and loved deploying their 12 personnel, which is where a guy like Harold Fannin comes in. And Harold Fannin, may be listed on your roster as a tight end, but can kind of probably line up anywhere. I wouldn't be surprised if there were times where he at least started in the backfield, giving a fullback look, or lined up as an H-back or even a big slot. Dylan Sampson, look, it's a crowded backfield with Jerome Ford, who is a very successful receiving option for this team, and with Quinshon Judkins. So the more you can do gives the more opportunity that you are on the field. We've seen Sampson in limited video that we have, from OTAs and, of course, from minicamp, lining up in the backfield with Quinshon Judkins, lining up in the slot. It's all about versatility. It's all about what you can do for me. But when you have these athletes that the Browns have, you want to deploy them. You want to give different looks. So it's going to keep the defense and the defensive coordinator, and certainly the guy calling the signals for the opposing defense, not necessarily sure how things are going to work. You never want to have a tell. And look, we can say these things, but look, this is, as much as it's Coach Kevin Stefanski's offense, there's going to be some newness to it with Tommy Rees now as a first-time, NFL offensive coordinator. They didn't hire Tommy just to come in and do Kevin's work. They hired Tommy and brought Tommy in to bring some of the college influence into the Cleveland Browns offense. And that means deploying your talent in ways that are not necessarily just strict and rudimentary. You want these guys to have versatility. And yes, the wide receiver room, as much as, we're all hoping Cedric Tillman can give us that 3-game stretch he gave us last year, where I believe it was like 6 receptions for 75 yards, 3 touchdowns. Cedric Tillman has missed time the last 3 seasons, both his second year with the Browns, his rookie year with the Browns, and his final year at Tennessee. So you do have some reservations about Cedric Tillman being able to get out there and stay out there for an entirety of a season. So the wide receiver room is a work in progress, but the Cleveland Browns are going to try to find their 5 best skill players, and those are the guys who are going to play on offense the majority of the time.
Yeah, the other thing is if you think about it, Fannin, Njoku, and Sampson give you – I don't think any defense wants a linebacker trying to cover any of those 3.
Absolutely. There's no question about it, Dave.
All right. How important is the run game going to be, given the fact that the quarterback play will be average at best? I think we can all agree they're not going to get elite quarterback play from any of the 4 guys on the roster. Does that make the running game that much more important?
I think it does. And, the other thing is what's going to make whatever quarterback is on the field life's a little easier. It certainly would be, the dependency on a vital running game. It's weird how it all kind of fell apart for the Browns running game because, in the beginning of the Stefanski-Berry, tenure here, that was basically the strength of this offense. Certainly was the run game, whether it was Nick Chubb, whether it was Kareem Hunt, whether it was others at times. And now you're getting back, hopefully, to the old system. At least that's what they're telling us. They're going to go back to, the wide zone system that was so successful for this team early, in the early 2020s. And you have 3 backs. And, we'll see how it divvies out. And obviously, whoever's going to be the hot hand is the one that's going to get the majority of the work. Ideally, you think that's going to lead towards Quinshon Judkins getting the bulk of the carries. But also you want to do it for the sake of the defense. And this was part of what happened last year is the offense either turned the ball over or had 3 and outs at a rate that was just absolutely alarming. So even though the defense was not performing as well in 2024 as they did in 2023, part of that was due to the fact that they were just on the field for an obscene amount of plays. You need to kind of, control the game. Obviously you want to shorten the game. The keys to those things are certainly the run game. The Browns now have gone with a theory of, let's go with as many backs as we can fit on our roster to be contributors as opposed to the headliner that this team had for years with Nick Chubb. It's, a different way, but it's kind of the way it's going because you have to keep in mind running back is one of the most, questionable positions in the entire league due to injuries. So for Cleveland, having more guys back there that can do more things, they feel is their best approach. But that will go a long way as far as, what determines the overall success of this team in 2025 and hopefully gets them away from, some of those 20-point losses that they were suffering in 2024 to where this team can maybe be into the game and challenging mid to late in the 4th quarter.
So what do you make of the fact that the veteran offensive linemen, we've heard Jack Conklin, we've heard Joel Bitonio, really like the scheme and the new offensive line coach? How important is that? And we didn't hear that last year. I will say that. We heard none of that from the offensive line last year.
Whatever happened last year, you also have to keep in mind whoever was going to come in after Bill Callahan, that was going to be a really difficult transition. Now, do you want to say it went well? We know it didn't go well, obviously. But certainly, there were other factors into it. Players being injured. Players, were coming into 2024 and started slow due to the recoveries that they were coming through from the season before. Some of them got it started late. Some of them never really got to top health. Some of them, by the time they got to their top physical health, the season was already behind them. But you can see and you hear the way they talk, and certainly Jack Conklin mentioning, the fact that it appears to be accountability is like a huge, huge word. And it's certainly not something that's thrown around. So this group, and, we have our concerns because 4/5 of this offensive line is, over the age of 30. So you definitely have, some concerns that they're just going to go out there and play like they did in, 21, 22, and most of the part for 2023. So, it is a question, but I think getting these guys all back into the plan, into the scheme that they were also comfortable with should probably go a long way in the better overall improvement of the offensive line.
Jeff Lloyd and I are going to step aside, take a quick timeout. Other side of the break, we'll turn our attention to the quarterback competition. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to Go Forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Try C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Jeff Lloyd from Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Jeremy Fowler, ESPN's national NFL reporter, his read of the Browns quarterback competition.
You know, just a guess, but if I had to guess, I think it will be Flacco. Just, you know, talking to people there, he's still the best thrower they have on the roster. You know, he's really well liked there. You know, he knows the system, at least to a degree. He's had success in it. But they like what Kenny Pickett's doing too. And then, you know, the rookies are coming along. So I would still say Flacco right now. I just, you know, I thought that coming into it, that hasn't really changed in my mind, unless I'm surprised and something shifts, you know. But these rookies, I do think they're going to bring them along. Now, it does seem like there's a little more momentum lately for them potentially keeping 4 quarterbacks. You know, coming out of the draft, it was reminded to me that, like, hey, Cleveland, they value players like a lot of teams, but maybe more so than others, value them like currency, like value, and tradable assets, right? So if you have 4 quarterbacks and somebody performs well in the preseason, or you showcase somebody to perform well in the preseason, maybe you can trade a piece, and then you have 3 quarterbacks. But there's a scenario where they can keep 4, or maybe they can stash one on the practice squad. Like, there are a lot of things you can do. It seems like they are at least open to those options at this point.
And Jeff, I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys, if Sampson or Gabriel ends up, Sanders or Gabriel ends up on the practice squad. Yeah, I mean, and people are like, oh, they'll never make it through. He was a 5th-round pick. People didn't want him as a backup. I mean, there is a real possibility that either Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders could end up on the practice squad.
If it was going to be one, I'd maybe say it was going to be Dillon Gabriel, but here would be the problem with that. The problem with that would be for the Browns to even consider doing this, they would have to consider that the thought would be that one of them looked really, really bad. I agree. If you're thinking what is the best chance for the Cleveland Browns to win week 1, week 2, week 3, I will stay and continue to say that I think it is Joe Flacco. We actually have some evidence here to kind of back that up. And I think what makes Flacco, you know, a head above here over Kenny Pickett is Joe doesn't need as much work. So if you're trying to groom Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel, both, you can do that because Joe doesn't need the workload at this point in his life at 40 years old that he would be if he was a 28 or a 29-year-old starting quarterback. You know, number one, you're going to want to limit him due to his age. Number two, he's just got so much experience. You know, practice reps on Wednesday are not going to be the be-all, end-all to what Joe Flacco does on a Sunday. I don't know about the 4 quarterback scenario, just because once you get into the regular season and the time is just so limited, it's hard enough going to be able to find enough reps for 3 quarterbacks, then trying to factor in a 4th quarterback. If it does turn out to be Joe, you know, you have to think there's a possibility you could probably move Kenny Pickett for what you paid for him, which was a 5th-round pick. I do think for me, though, I think as this has gone on to this point, whether it was rookie minicamp, whether it was OTAs, whether it was minicamp, I think they need to maybe reevaluate the plan in regards to Shedeur Sanders. I don't understand. And look, you can say Gabriel was drafted in the 3rd round, and you can say Sanders was drafted in the 5th round. I don't know that there's much difference between either guy. Both guy had significant amount of playing time in college. Neither guy, if they're going to hit in the NFL, is a guy that's probably going to have to sit very long. I just think for where they are right now, for me, you know, if you're going to say which one is basically not necessarily rising above the pack as far as his play, but who's maybe, you know, rising above the group as far as wanting to have the ability to see more of, I got to think it's Shedeur Sanders. And, you know, if you end up that you keep the 2 veterans and, you know, only 1 rookie, you know, I guess that's a move you can go with, but I would think it would be 1 veteran and 2 rookies when this team finally gets to its first 53-man roster.
All right, couple of things about Shedeur Sanders. Let's start with Chad Ochocinco. This is with Shannon Sharp. What he's hearing from Browns players about Sanders.
He's answering the questions perfectly. And the funny thing about it, that I got a couple of young bulls out there. I talked to Denzel Ward. I talked to some, but I can't say the name. But anyway, I done talked to some people. He looked different. There's a difference when that young bull is out there spinning that ball. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Difference. I'm talking about football. I ain't talking about no media and all that hoopla and all them, on Twitter, they putting up the numbers. He was 10 for 12 for 2 touchdowns. I'm talking about when he's at the helm, he looks different. Whether he's going with the first team, second team, or third team. It don't matter. I understand getting drafted in the 5th round. All that means nothing when it's time to play football and that whistle blows. He looks different than the rest of the competition. That's what I heard. And I'm talking from a not Brother Ward. I'm just talking about from sources that's in that room, that's on that field, that's playing the sport.
That is a rookie mistake relative to a source. All right. Now, in reference to that, longtime Browns beat reporter Tony Grossi had this to say.
Tony, your reaction to Ochocinco?
Well, first of all, Chad does watch the ESPN Cleveland quarterback tracker, obviously.
He sure does.
He got his figures correct there. Shedeur's doing fine, okay? But this is more of the false hysteria that's being created. He's doing fine, but so is Dillon Gabriel, okay? But you don't hear Chad Johnson saying anything about Dillon Gabriel.
I don't know. Tony, are you seeing this dynamic that Shedeur is starting to win his teammates over?
Well, I think they're all winning their teammates over. So I see the same thing with Gabriel. And you talk about spinning the ball. No one out there spins it as well as Gabriel. I mean, actually mechanically spinning a driving spiral into a receiver's hands, he's better at that. So I think it's just more false hysteria. Shedeur is doing fine. He is getting better, but he's not the only one getting better.
So, Jeff, again, the stats, they're like counting home runs in batting practice at a Guardians game. So the stats, whatever. If you liked Shedeur Sanders, you like what you've seen. If you liked Dillon Gabriel, you like what you've seen because they haven't really played what will be anything close to NFL football yet.
And look, sometimes this stuff can get manipulated. And if you remember, last summer, there was basically only one beat writer that was trying to tell us all, hey, I don't see things with Deshaun Watson going well at all right now. Nobody else seemed to be reporting that. And then once we got to the regular season games, we saw that Deshaun Watson was struggling and, struggling mightily. I think, they're supposed to look good. You know what I'm saying? We're not into the point, where there's pads on. We're not into that stuff yet. The quarterbacks are meant to not be pressured or hurried. So ideally, you want to look good. I would think that if, the storyline was that nobody looked good, that would probably be more of a bigger story than that these guys are looking good. But again, we're talking about a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick. And to this point, both seem to be, grasping it. So both seem to be doing well. It's not a surprise that maybe teammates are gravitating to Shedeur Sanders. Number one, the personality that he is, the family that he comes from, it just kind of made sense it was going to go this way. And quarterbacks should normally develop a rapport, certainly with not just their offensive teammates, all of their teammates. But you kind of see that, the bonding is there. And look, whether it's a David Njoku, whether it's a Jerry Jeudy, they understand, who is the greater possibility of being around longer at the quarterback position. And that would be Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel, obviously, then Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett, who's only got 1 year on his deal. I would think, if we're going to equate it to steps, so to speak, I would think it's a good first start. Obviously, July is important. Obviously, August is going to be the ultimate tell of the tale. But again, these players who, in Sanders and Gabriel, who played as much as they did in college, they should be able to go to knock out some OTAs and knock out some mini camps. But as those joint practices pick up, and then, of course, the preseason games pick up, that, of course, is going to be the ultimate tell of the tape.
Yeah, the other thing relative to the rookie quarterbacks, and we keep hearing that they have to find out what they have in them before the first 2 picks. I think the Browns are operating under the assumption we're probably using one of those two picks, the higher one, on a quarterback, unless one of these two rookies comes out and just, looks like they are a can't-miss guy. If they're kind of okay, you got to go. If you're drafting up high in the draft, you got to go find a quarterback next year.
Well, I think this is also what they just told us basically, in this past April. There wasn't a quarterback there. So they traded down, and they traded down for yet another pick in next year's draft. It's going to be really hard. And I think the other thing would be, even if the rookie quarterback, either one of them plays really well, it'll also come down to how much did they play. I don't think anybody's going to say, oh, well, he looked really good in December. That's it. We're not going to take a quarterback in round one. So that's where I think a little bit, the urgency factor is going to come in for Cleveland. Are you treading water with a Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett? Are you 2-4 with a Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett? If that's the case, and for me, it might even be sooner than that, is get the rookies out there. Ideally, in a perfect world, you maybe don't want to have to use a first-round pick next April on quarterback because one of these guys shows you that much. But it would also be, how often did they play to give you the idea of, whether or not they have done enough to prove that you'll go another direction with those 2 first-round picks. And there also is the possibility of it might not matter whatever they do. Because, again, teams don't normally plan to be drafting in the top 10. The Browns could be drafting in the top 10 maybe even twice in 2026. And to not go the quarterback route would probably be kind of foolish.
Jeff Lloyd, as always, great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Jeff.
Anytime, Dave, anytime.
Jeff Lloyd, make sure you check him out. Host of Browns 3D on the Orange and Brown Report. Always really good stuff. It's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow at 4 on Sports for CLE.